Brainmaker, The Power of Gut Microbes to Heal and Protect Your Brain for Life, by David Perlmutter, MD. Introduction. Imagine for a moment two children born on the very same day. The first is a boy, born on a beautiful, sun-drenched Greek island in the Aegean Sea. He arrives into the world naturally, at home. For the first 2 years of his life, he is breastfed. Growing up, his world is simple. There is no fast food, no sugary sodas. His meals come from his family's garden, fresh vegetables, local fish, homemade yogurt, and plenty of olive oil. He spends his days helping on the farm, breathing clean air, free from pollution. When he gets sick, his parents give him a spoonful of local honey, because antibiotics are a rarity. He will grow up fit and lean, active and social. He will likely never face a serious brain disorder like depression or Alzheimer's. In fact, on his island, called Icaria, it's not unusual for people to live into their 90s and even hundreds, with minds as sharp as the day they were born. Now, picture the second child. A girl, born in a bustling American city. She enters the world through a scheduled C-section in a sterile operating room. She is fed exclusively with formula. As a child, she suffers from one infection after another: ear infections, throat infections, sinus infections, and for each one, a new prescription for antibiotics is written. Though she has access to any food imaginable, her diet is filled with processed meals, refined sugars, and unhealthy fats. By the time she's a young girl, she is overweight and pre-diabetic. She struggles to focus in school, suffers from anxiety, and by the time she's an adult, she will be at high risk for a host of brain-related conditions, mood disorders, migraines, autoimmune diseases, and perhaps, one day, Alzheimer's. What separates these two lives? It isn't luck. It isn't just genetics. The answer is a secret, hidden deep within our bodies. A secret so profound it is revolutionizing our understanding of human health. Today, we're going to explore the groundbreaking work of Drive. David Perlmutter, a celebrated neurologist who, in his book Brainmaker, uncovers this very secret. After shaking the world with his bestseller Grain Brain, which revealed the devastating effects of sugar and carbs on our minds, Drive. Perlmutter takes us a layer deeper. He argues that the control center for your brain's health isn't inside your skull at all. It's in your gut. By the end of our time together, you will understand that you are not just an individual. You are an ecosystem. A walking, talking home to trillions of tiny organisms that have a commanding role over your mood, your memory, your immunity, and your risk for nearly every chronic disease. You will learn how these microbes are the true brain makers, and I promise you, you will never look at your body, your food, or your health the same way again. Book summary. For centuries, we've been taught to fear bacteria. We see them as invaders, agents of plague and disease. We scrub our hands with sanitizers, we take powerful antibiotics to wipe them out, and we live in environments that are more sterile than ever before in human history. But this war on germs, Drive, Perlmutter argues, has been a catastrophic mistake. We've been fighting the wrong battle. It turns out, we are more bacteria than we are human. Right now, living inside you and on you are roughly 100 trillion microbes, bacteria, fungi, viruses, that outnumber your own human cells by 10 to 1. If you could gather them all together, they would fill a half-gallon jug and weigh about 3 or 4 pounds, roughly the same as your brain. This bustling, invisible world living inside you is called the microbiome. And the science is now undeniable. The health of this inner world dictates the health of your outer world. Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, declared over 2,000 years ago, all disease begins in the gut. He had no microscope, no genetic sequencing, but his intuition was profoundly correct. Today, we're finally catching up to his ancient wisdom. Drive. Perlmutter explains that what's happening in your intestines is determining your risk for everything from ADHD and anxiety to depression, multiple sclerosis, and Alzheimer's. So, how is this possible? How can a bunch of tiny bugs in your belly control the most complex object in the known universe? Your brain? The connection is surprisingly direct. Imagine your brain and your gut are two great cities, connected by a massive superhighway. This highway is a real, physical thing called the vagus nerve. It's one of the longest nerves in your body, running all the way from your brainstem down to your abdomen. Information travels along this highway in both directions. When you feel nervous before a big test and get butterflies in your stomach, that's your brain sending a message down to your gut. But what science is now discovering is that the traffic going the other way, from the gut up to the brain, is far, far busier. In fact, your gut has its own nervous system, so vast and complex that scientists have nicknamed it the second brain. This second brain is lined with hundreds of millions of neurons, more than you'd find in your spinal cord. And here's where it gets truly mind-bending. Your gut bacteria are constantly communicating with this second brain. They produce chemical messengers that speak to your brain in its own language. Consider serotonin, the famous feel-good molecule. It's the chemical that popular antidepressants like Prozac and Zoloft are designed to manipulate. We've always thought of it as a brain chemical. But get this, an estimated 80 to 90% of all the serotonin in your body isn't made in your brain. It's manufactured in your gut. And its production is heavily influenced by the types of bacteria living there. This might be why, for so many people, antidepressants don't work as well as simple dietary changes. They're trying to fix a problem in the head that actually originates in the belly. This gut-brain connection is the foundation of our health. But when this connection is disrupted, when the ecosystem in our gut is thrown out of balance, a fire starts to burn throughout the body. A fire called inflammation. Inflammation is a word you hear a lot, but what does it really mean? Think about what happens when you get a splinter. The area gets red, swollen, hot, and painful. That's your immune system rushing to the scene, creating a controlled fire to burn out the invader and begin the healing process. This is acute inflammation, and it's a lifesaver. But what happens when that fire doesn't go out? What if it smolders quietly, day after day, not on your skin, but deep inside your body and even your brain? This is chronic inflammation, and drive. Perlmutter identifies it as the common denominator in nearly every modern degenerative disease: heart disease, cancer, diabetes, arthritis, and yes, brain disorders. The brain of an Alzheimer's patient is, quite literally, a brain on fire. So what lights this fire? The answer, once again, leads us back to the gut. Your intestinal wall is an incredibly delicate barrier, only 1 cell thick. Its job is to be a gatekeeper, letting vital nutrients pass into your bloodstream while keeping harmful substances out. But this barrier can be damaged. When it is, it becomes permeable, or leaky. Think of it like a finely woven screen door that suddenly has holes poked in it. Now, things that should have stayed inside your gut, undigested food particles, toxins, and bits of bacteria, can leak into your bloodstream. One of the most dangerous of these is a molecule called lipopolysaccharide, or LPs. LPs is a component of the outer wall of certain gut bacteria. It's harmless when it stays in the gut. But when it leaks into your blood, your immune system sees it as a major threat, a sign of a hostile invasion. It hits the panic button, unleashing a massive wave of inflammatory chemicals called cytokines. LPs is so powerfully inflammatory that scientists in laboratories use it to intentionally create inflammation in lab animals to study diseases. When they inject LPs into an animal, it instantly triggers the very conditions they want to research, from depression to Alzheimer's. And the evidence in humans is just as damning. Studies show that people with depression have dramatically higher levels of antibodies to LPs in their blood, a clear sign of a leaky gut. Patients with Alzheimer's have been found to have 3 times as much LPs in their blood as healthy individuals. The same is true for Parkinson's, ALS, and even autism. The movement of this one molecule, LPs, from the gut into the bloodstream is like lighting a match in a room full of gasoline. It sets the body and brain ablaze. This brings us to a critical question. What causes a leaky gut in the first place? What damages that delicate intestinal wall and allows these incendiary devices to escape? Drive. Perlmutter points to a handful of modern culprits that are systematically destroying our inner ecosystem. It all begins, quite literally, at birth. When a baby is born vaginally, it travels through the birth canal and gets its first big dose of microbes. It's coated in a rich, diverse community of bacteria from its mother, a microbial inheritance that has been passed down for millions of years. This process is like a master gardener planting the first, most important seeds in the soil of the baby's gut. These founding bacteria, especially strains like lactobacillus, immediately get to work. They help the baby digest mother's milk, they build a strong gut wall, and they begin to train the infant's brand new immune system, teaching it the difference between friend and foe. But a baby born by C-section misses this vital inoculation. Instead of being colonized by the mother's protective vaginal flora, its first exposure is to bacteria from the sterile operating room and the skin of doctors and nurses. Its gut microbiome gets off to a completely different, and far less robust, start. Studies are now showing the staggering consequences of this difference. Being born by C-section is linked to a 5-fold increased risk of allergies, triple the risk of ADHD, and double the risk of autism. It also dramatically increases the risk for obesity, type 1 diabetes, and celiac disease later in life. Of course, C-sections save lives and are sometimes medically necessary. But the soaring rate of elective C-sections, now accounting for about 1/3 of all births in the United States, is having a profound and unintended impact on the health of a generation. The next major force shaping our microbiome is how we are fed as infants. Breast milk is a miracle food, not just because of its nutrients, but because it's packed with prebiotics, special sugars that are indigestible to the baby but are the perfect food for beneficial gut bacteria. It's nature's way of ensuring the good bugs thrive. Formula, no matter how advanced, cannot fully replicate this. But perhaps the most devastating assault on our microbiome comes from the widespread and often casual use of antibiotics. These drugs are miracles of modern medicine when used properly to fight life-threatening infections. But they are also like nuclear bombs for your gut ecosystem. A single course of a broad-spectrum antibiotic can wipe out vast swaths of your microbial community, both the good and the bad. And the gut may never fully recover its original diversity. Think back to the story of Jason, the 12-year-old boy with severe autism drive. Perlmutter describes. His mother had taken antibiotics throughout her 3rd trimester. Jason himself was on antibiotics more often than not during his first year of life for chronic ear infections. His gut was under relentless assault from the very beginning. His stool analysis later showed he had virtually no lactobacillus species left, a sign of severe trauma to his microbiome. And it's not just prescribed antibiotics. An estimated 80% of all antibiotics sold in the U.S. are not for humans, but for livestock. They are used to make animals grow bigger, faster. These drugs end up in our meat and dairy products, delivering a low, steady dose of microbiome-disrupting chemicals with every meal. This brings us to the food on our plates. Drive. Perlmutter makes it clear that diet is the most powerful tool we have to shape our microbiome on a daily basis. He singles out 2 ingredients as being particularly destructive: Processed fructose and gluten. Fructose, especially in the form of high fructose corn syrup, is now a dominant source of calories in the Western diet. Our gut bugs feast on this sugar, but it preferentially feeds the bad bacteria, leading to an overgrowth of pathogenic strains. This fermentation process produces gas, causing bloating and discomfort. More importantly, it fuels inflammation and has been shown to directly damage the gut lining, making it more leaky. Artificial sweeteners, it turns out, are just as bad. Even though they have no calories, they pass through the gut and radically alter the microbial landscape, often in ways that promote glucose intolerance, a precursor to diabetes. And then there is gluten, the protein found in wheat, barley, and rye. In Grain Brain, Drive, Perlmutter called it a silent germ. Here, he explains how it does its damage. The science, led by researchers like Drive. Alessio Fasano at Harvard, shows that a component of gluten called gliadin increases gut permeability in all humans, not just those with celiac disease. It triggers the release of a protein called zonulin, which acts like a key that unlocks the tight junctions between the cells of your intestinal wall, opening the gates for LPs and other inflammatory molecules to pour into your bloodstream. The cumulative effect of all these modern forces, C-sections, formula feeding, antibiotics, sugar, gluten, stress, and environmental chemicals like chlorine in our water, has created a perfect storm. We have systematically dismantled our inner ecosystems. And the consequences are the very diseases that plague us today. Take obesity. We've always thought of it as a simple equation of calories in versus calories out. But the science of the microbiome turns this idea on its head. It turns out there are fat tribes and thin tribes of bacteria. The two dominant groups in our gut are the Firmicutes and the Bacteroidetes. Obese people consistently show a higher ratio of Firmicutes to Bacteroidetes. Why? Firmicutes are incredibly efficient at extracting calories from food. They are the fat-loving bacteria. People with a gut dominated by them will literally absorb more calories from the exact same meal than someone whose gut is dominated by Bacteroidetes. In a landmark study, researchers took gut bacteria from a set of human twins, one obese, one lean, and transplanted them into lean, germ-free mice. The mice that received bacteria from the obese twin grew fat. The mice that got bacteria from the lean twin stayed lean. The bacteria alone were enough to determine their fate. This suggests that for millions of people struggling with their weight, the problem may not be a lack of willpower, but a battle against their own microbes. The same story unfolds with our mental health. As we've seen, depression is not just a chemical imbalance in the brain, it is an inflammatory disease. And that inflammation often starts with a leaky gut. This connection is so strong that researchers are beginning to view many psychiatric issues through the lens of the microbiome. Animal studies have shown that you can literally transplant personalities. When shy, timid mice are given the gut bacteria of adventurous, risk-taking mice, they become bold. And when the bold mice get the gut bacteria of the timid ones, they become anxious. The bacteria in their guts are directly influencing their behavior. This brings us to the most hopeful and empowering part of Drive. Perlmutter's message. If our microbiome can be damaged, it can also be healed. It is a dynamic, living garden. And we are the gardeners. He lays out a clear, actionable plan, the Brainmaker Rehab Program, built on 6 essential keys to cultivate a thriving inner ecosystem. Key 1. Choose foods rich in probiotics. Probiotics are the good bugs themselves. The best way to get them is not from a pill, but from fermented foods. For thousands of years, cultures around the world have consumed foods like live cultured yogurt, kefir, kimchi fermented cabbage, sauerkraut, and kombucha fermented tea. The fermentation process not only preserves the food but creates a rich source of beneficial bacteria like lactobacillus and bifidobacterium. These are the strains that help maintain the integrity of your gut lining, regulate your immune system, and control inflammation. Key 2. Go low carb. Embrace high-quality fat. This is the core principle from Grain Brain, and it's even more important in the context of the microbiome. A diet high in sugar and refined carbs feeds the bad bacteria and fans the flames of inflammation. A diet rich in healthy fats, like avocados, olive oil, coconut oil, nuts, seeds, and wild fish, does the opposite. Fat is the preferred fuel for your brain and a powerful anti-inflammatory. Cholesterol, in particular, is not the villain we've been told it is. It's a critical brain nutrient, an antioxidant, and a precursor to vital hormones and vitamin D. Low cholesterol levels are consistently linked with poorer cognitive function and a higher risk for depression. Key 3. Enjoy wine, tea, coffee, and chocolate. This might be the best news yet. These foods, in moderation, are packed with powerful plant-based antioxidants called polyphenols. Polyphenols are like superfoods for your good bacteria. They act as prebiotics and have been shown to increase beneficial strains like bifidobacterium while reducing harmful ones like Clostridia. Red wine contains resveratrol, coffee has been shown to improve the Firmicutes to bacteroidates ratio, and the flavonoids in dark chocolate have been proven to lower C-reactive protein, a key marker of inflammation. Key 4. Choose foods rich in prebiotics. If probiotics are the seeds you plant in your garden, prebiotics are the fertilizer that helps them grow. Prebiotics are special types of non-digestible fiber found in foods like garlic, onions, leeks, asparagus, jicama, and dandelion greens. Our bodies can't digest them, but our good gut bacteria feast on them. When they metabolize these fibers, they produce incredibly beneficial compounds called short-chain fatty acids, like butyrate, which is the primary fuel for the cells lining your colon and a powerful anti-inflammatory. Key 5. Drink filtered water. The chlorine added to most municipal tap water is a bactericide. It's designed to kill harmful microbes in the water supply. The problem is, it doesn't distinguish between bad microbes and the good ones in your gut. Drinking chlorinated water is like taking a small dose of an antibiotic with every glass. Using a simple carbon filter pitcher or a faucet-mounted filter can eliminate this threat. Key 6. Fast every season. Intermittent fasting, for example, going 24 hours without food once a season, is a powerful way to reboot your system. Fasting enhances antioxidant function, stimulates the growth of new brain cells, and triggers a process that helps repair and grow new mitochondria, the tiny energy factories inside our cells. It also prompts positive changes in the gut bacteria, favoring strains that are associated with a longer lifespan. This plan is not about deprivation. It's about abundance. It's about adding in the foods that nourish your inner garden and crowding out the ones that poison it. The results can be transformative. Drive. Perlmutter shares the story of Carlos, a man with such a severe case of multiple sclerosis that he was in a wheelchair and required a catheter. After undergoing a revolutionary procedure called a fecal microbiota transplant, or FMT, where the gut bacteria from a healthy donor is transferred to a sick patient, his MS went into total remission. He was able to walk again, unassisted. He tells the story of Martina, a woman who had suffered from anxiety, depression, and chronic fibromyalgia pain for years. After just 6 weeks on a gluten-free diet with aggressive probiotics, she was off all her medications. Her brain fog lifted, her anxiety vanished, and her pain was gone. She felt, in her words, like the fog has finally lifted. And then there's Jason, the boy with autism. His story is perhaps the most profound. After his parents followed Drive Perlmutter's protocol and then pursued an FMT, Jason transformed. The boy who could barely speak in full sentences, who was trapped in a world of repetitive behaviors, became vibrant, happy, and conversational. He started initiating conversations. He was present. These stories are not miracles. They are the result of applying a new, more complete understanding of the human body. They show us that we have more control over our health than we ever thought possible. We are not doomed by our genes. We are not helpless victims of modern disease. We are the architects of our own internal world. Commentary. When you finish a book like Brainmaker, it's hard not to feel a sense of both awe and urgency. The central idea? That we are not just a single organism, but a complex ecosystem, a superorganism living in symbiosis with trillions of microbes, is one of the most profound shifts in medical thinking in the last century. It changes everything. For generations, the paradigm of medicine has been to identify an enemy and destroy it. A germ, a virus, a cancer cell. We viewed the body as a machine that breaks down, and the doctor's job is to come in with a drug or a scalpel and fix the broken part. But drive. Perlmutter's work asks us to adopt a completely different mindset. Instead of being mechanics, we must become gardeners. Our role is not to wage war on our bodies, but to cultivate the garden within. To tend the soil, provide the right nutrients, and foster a diverse and resilient ecosystem that can, in turn, protect and sustain us. This is an incredibly empowering perspective. It moves the center of power from the doctor's office and the pharmacy back to our own kitchens, our own habits, and our own daily choices. What is most striking about this book is how it connects so many seemingly unrelated modern ailments to a single underlying root cause. Think about it: autism, depression, obesity, dementia, autoimmune disease. In the conventional model, these are all treated by different specialists with entirely different sets of drugs. But Brainmaker shows us that they are all, in many ways, different branches of the same tree, a tree rooted in a disrupted microbiome and chronic inflammation. This is not to say that the gut is the only cause of these complex conditions, but it is a powerful and often overlooked common denominator. If you are a young person listening to this today, this knowledge is a gift. You have the opportunity to make choices now that will protect your brain and your body for the rest of your life. You don't have to wait until something is broken to start paying attention. You can start building a resilient, vibrant inner world today. And you don't need to make drastic changes overnight. The journey begins with small, simple steps. Here are 3 things you can do this week to start applying these lessons. First, add 1 fermented food to your daily routine. It could be as simple as a cup of plain, full-fat yogurt for breakfast, a side of sauerkraut with your dinner, or trying a bottle of kombucha. Just 1 serving a day begins the process of reintroducing these vital allies into your gut. Second, swap 1 sugary drink for a healthier choice. Instead of that soda or fruit juice, which are bombs of processed sugar, have a glass of filtered water, a cup of green tea, or a naturally flavored seltzer. This 1 small change starves the bad bacteria and stops feeding the fire of inflammation. Third, become a detective in your own kitchen. Pick up 1 packaged food that you eat regularly, cereal, a granola bar, a sauce, and just read the ingredients. Notice the sugar content. Notice if it contains wheat or gluten. You don't have to stop eating it right away. The first step is simply awareness. Understanding what you are putting into your body is the beginning of taking back control. The message of Brainmaker is ultimately one of profound hope. It tells us that our health is not a fixed destiny written in our genes, but a dynamic story that we are co-authoring every single day with the 100 trillion partners living inside us. By learning their language and understanding their needs, we can create a future of vibrant health, not just for ourselves, but for generations to come. That was a summary of Brainmaker by Drive. David Perlmutter. We've journeyed through the core ideas today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only scratch the surface. The real transformation happens when you read the book for yourself. It's in the quiet moments of reading when a particular scientific study clicks, or a patient story resonates with your own experience in a way you didn't expect. This overview is your map, but the book itself is the territory. If anything we've talked about today has sparked your curiosity or given you a new sense of hope, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about gathering information, it's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see yourself and your place in the world. A link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable and want to continue exploring life-changing books, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It lets me know that we're on the right track and ensures you won't miss our next journey into another incredible book. Let's keep learning and growing together.